From giving us the most insanely competitive matches in history to slowly becoming one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time, here are Jon Jones' biggest rivalries, inside the Octagon and beyond. Starting off is the fact that he's already being compared to some of the most legendary fighters of all time. Now, there are a lot of fighters in the history of MMA and the UFC who've lost a lot but will still be remembered as legends in the sport. And I'm pretty sure some of these people, like Nate Diaz, Urijah Faber, and Donald Cerrone, need no introduction. But the few UFC fighters who have been at the top of their sport for years without losing are truly in a class by themselves. Jones is a one-of-a-kind fighter because he has only one loss in 27 fights, 21 of which were inside the Octagon. His only loss came in 2009 during his fight against Matt Hamill. The reason? He was too brutal. Though to be fair, the referee, Steve Mazzagatti, didn't do a great job. Even despite that hiccup though, Jones has won 20 times inside the Octagon, beating some of the best light heavyweight fighters ever. 8 of these 20 wins have come against men who have won major MMA titles in the past. 6 of these people had UFC gold, and Bones won 5 of the 6 championship-level fights he was in against these people. To put this into perspective, the New Yorker has won more fights than anyone else in the history of the UFC's light heavyweight division. He has also done this against some of the best fighters of his time. Make no mistake, it may seem like Jones is just galloping along the field that is the MMA. But there have been times when he has actually felt challenged, aka the UFC 152 fight against Belfort. This was a fight against a natural middleweight who was smaller than our champion, and who also stepped up to fight him when no one else would. But for a number of reasons, this one was different. First of all, it went on for a lot longer than the fight Jones had with Sonnen. Second, Belfort was able to put Jones in a dangerous situation that we had never seen him in before. We watched the champion lose his aura of invincibility for about 15 seconds. He was in pain. He was a person. But Jones didn't tap when Belfort put him in an armbar. Most of us would have in 6 seconds. Hell, I would have in just 2 seconds. But Jones got past the armbar defense and then won the rest of the match, even though his arm was hurt. That's some overpowered crazy energy right there. Jones beating everyone on the last stop before the top of the mountain was nice. But there was something missing from the champion's resume. Ali had Frazier, Magic had Bird, Silva had Sonnen. We had to see the winner go up against someone else. It didn't matter if they were competitive or played dirty. We needed to see a change in him. And after about a year of having the belt tied around his waist, we finally did. Because Jones had found Evans. Even though there wasn't as much back and forth action as most of us had hoped for, the fact that Jones kept his cool in the face of a lot of bad blood was enough to back up the hype about this fight. I mean, just take a look at some of the iconic pictures from this fight, and you'll realize just how badly beaten up Jones looked. Regardless, he slayed. Then came a match where people thought the time had come for Jones to be overthrown. And they believed Daniel Cormier was the guy who could finally do it. Whether they thought the challenger had enough wrestling experience to take advantage of the chance, or they just wanted to be the first ones to say, "I told you so." A lot of people thought this was where Jones' title reign would come to an abrupt end. Boy, did they get it wrong. Jones didn't just stand on the sidelines like Shogun, Rampage, and Evans. He got in there and gave the fans the fight they wanted to see, which, in the end, also gave Cormier a good chance to hit his rival. But it turns out that getting closer to Jones isn't enough to stop him from becoming the GOAT. Definitely not. In the end, Jones and Cormier are probably not done dancing together. And who knows, we may have a matchup between them that's even more intense than this one. Speaking of intense fights, though, let's just talk about the Jones versus Gustafsson fight at UFC 165 for a second. Few of us had enough foresight to guess this one. Alexander Gustafsson was the first man to be the same height as Jones. But that wasn't enough to stop critics from pointing out a huge difference between the two. Jones was still much taller and longer than Gustafsson, and that was likely to be a big problem before the fight. But Gustafsson was able to block the champion's reach, making this fight for the light heavyweight title arguably the best in the sport's history, and giving us what many of us hope will be Jones' only real rival. After winning so many fights, you're probably wondering, what is Jones actually aiming to do? Well, it looks like he wants to do more than just become the UFC's best fighter for his weight class. Now, Jones will return after a 3-year break to fight the former interim champ, Cyril Gane, for the vacant heavyweight title at UFC 285 on March 4th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Why specifically him, you ask? You see, Jones wants to end the debate around whether or not he's one of the best fighters of all time, and he thinks he can do this by winning a UFC title in the second division. On Unlocking the Cage with Jimmy Smith, he said he wants to do the best he can. He doesn't want to just win, but he wants to be the best of the best. And he wants to look good while that happens. Basically, he really wants to make history. He also said he's not thinking about the stress of being pound-for-pound king. He believes he's fighting for something he thinks is bigger. And he thinks beating Gane will prove that. Jones has really thought things through because, from what I know, he carefully plans his next move, no matter how long it takes to make it. The 35-year-old has been slowly putting on weight since 2020 so that he can move up to the heavyweight division and become the 6th UFC fighter to win titles in 2 weight classes. He will have the chance at UFC 285 in March. On paper, he has more than enough skills to get there, no doubt. But if he loses, St. Pierre will have more proof that he is the real UFC GOAT, since he was able to win titles in 2 divisions and has only 1 more loss than Jones in the UFC. He is a strong contender. If former champions like Kamaru Usman and Israel Adesanya had kept being the best at their sport and added being a 2-division champion to their list of accomplishments, they could have moved up in the rankings and passed Jones as the best ever. But both of them recently lost their belts in shocking last-second knockouts, which hurt their chances of becoming the GOAT. So you know what that means. The title is up for grabs. And Jones isn't someone who goes down easily. And that's all for Jon Jones' biggest rivalries, inside the Octagon and beyond.